Episode 2. In the last episode, I showed you that MindStudio offers many free publicly available AI agents that you can use or clone to see how they work. Today marks the first part of our series, where we'll focus on uncovering what's inside of one of those agents, a TLDR agent that summarizes your content. So let's look inside of the TLDR agent. When you open this, you're presented with this agent development environment. You can see in front of you, you can see this canvas, and you see these blocks. And to the left, you see some functionality of the agent that belongs to this agent, such as data sources, functions, user inputs, and workflows. And to the right, you see the properties of each block when you click on the block. So the workflow is basically a set of steps that you define that have a start, the processing blocks in the middle, and the end. And currently there are two workflows. One of them is called main, and another is called extension. We are currently going to be interested in extension flow. But why are there two? Because if you want to run an agent as a browser extension, you need to let an agent know that you want to be able to have a flow or workflow inside this where you set that agent as a browser extension. And as soon as you do that, you can run the agent as a browser extension. Now, quickly a preview of what the main flow is. If you click on the main flow, it's slightly advanced version of that agent where there are different blocks here that are asking you to provide some kind of choice, some kind of user input. And based on that, do its thing. So if you run this agent as a standalone agent, not from the browser, but as a standalone, it will give you some choices where you can specify your input. But back to the agent. Now, if you look at this, there's a start. And if you look to the right, there are properties of this start. One of those properties is called page content. What is a page content? It's a variable. It's something that you get access to by default when this agent runs as a browser extension. Let's say I have this article that I would like to read, but it's kind of long. It seems interesting, and I really would like to get a TLDR copy, a short summary of what this article is about before I read this. So if I pop open my browser extension, my MindStudio browser extension, and I can see this copy of TLDR, that's our agent. That's the copy that we opened. And if I run this, and remember, we told it that now run as a browser extension. If I run this, just like this, it runs that agent and basically grabs the entire content of that article, analyzes it, and gives me a TLDR. So whatever it grabs is available to you in this variable called page content. So it has three blocks, but this specific block is where the main action happens. You see, after it hits start, and after it grabs the page content from the page, again, remember, this is the article, and all this information gets populated into the built-in page content. So after it populates that variable automatically, it then hits this block. And what does this block do? This is what's called generate text block. It generates an output text based on your prompt. And so your prompt here is analyze the content, create a TLDR, Format analysis using Markdown, utilizing findings, bullet points, and colors were valuable to convey nuance. And then you see these fancy brackets and curly braces. So think of it as the way to separate the variable from the prompt. It says, here's my content, and here's where content is stored, the page content variable. Do that utilizing this content. And so when it looks at it, it actually analyzes and produces the result and then gives you what you just saw here. When we ran this agent, it gives you the result. You might look at this and say, well, that's not that many directions. How does it even know how to format it? What to do, what not to do, what to watch out for, and what to pick out. So enter the system prompt. Here, I'm clicking on this tab that basically says system prompt. And here is where the system prompt directions are. Think of it as something you might give to, let's say, ChatGPT before you ask it to perform some action. This is a prompt, but in terms of this agent, it's a generic prompt because it contains general directions for the agents, and it tells it what it is, what it's supposed to do, what its tasks are, responsibilities, how it might format it, and what to watch out for and what its constraints are. And so by the time it comes here, it already knows these general directions. And unless you override them here, it takes those into account when it looks at these specific nuanced directions, so that you don't have to repeat this again. You have it all in one place in system prompt, and your blocks are simply executing something specific. And there we go. So that's it. In the next video, we'll go and look at the main flow. The main flow has a little bit more advanced functionality. And that is when you decide to execute this agent not as a browser extension, but as a standalone agent. If you'd like to learn more, stay tuned. See you next time.